Yeah, I actually have never set, in 23 years, I've ever set a numeric goal.
Wow.
So I've never said I want this many more people or this more money or this many more groups. I've always had health goals. What can I do to get the church healthier? And honestly, it's going to surprise people. From the college to the campuses, you would be surprised that more than 85% of it were not ever planned. I was way more an opportunist than I was a strategist. So I put myself and the organization in the healthiest place I can find so that when the opportunities come, I can say yes.
Welcome, everybody, to the GrowLeader podcast, where we grow leaders that grow churches by helping them reach their full potential. My name is Matt, sitting here with my pastor, Pastor Chris Hodges.
Happy New Year,
man.
It's
a big day.
Yeah.
How often do we get a chance to do the podcast on the first day?
On the first day of
a
the new
brand new year.
I'm excited about it too.
It's going to be amazing.
I think it's going to be an interesting year, good and bad, by the way. It's just my hunch. I don't know that. I'm not a prophet or anything, but I actually, well, first of all, I never enjoy any election year. I think they bring in so much drama.
Right.
Into the year, and then you have the uncertainty of the economy and all this stuff that's happening on the world stage. So who knows what 2024 will bring? But I do know this, and this was my Christmas message this year for pastors who have not heard my Christmas message yet. But I think it's going to be a year of miracles. I really believe we're going to see the hand of God in supernatural ways, where we can only say, man, this just had to be God. Only God could have done that. So I'm excited too.
So I think everybody gets excited about the start. I love new. I think we all love anything new, and to get a blank slate and a fresh start at the new year. We're going to dig into that. So in full disclosure, Pastor Chris usually gives me a lot of notes on our episodes. I got a page with bullet points today. And so the listener gets a chance to hear Matt learn from Pastor Chris. So I'm literally going to be a listener in today's episode.
I'm excited about it. We'll get into that in just a second.
It's going to be amazing. So first thing that we're going to get into that we're excited about as a church is 21 days of prayer and fasting. It's my favorite. I've been doing it for 13 years now. It's an amazing way to start the year. And you always love to invite people to participate with us.
Yeah, so this is my 42nd.
Wow.
21 days of prayer and fasting. And so I want to encourage every pastor, every business leader, every mom or dad to actually participate in 21 days of prayer and fasting. I call it tithing the year to God. It's not an exact tithe, but it's giving God the first. It's giving God the first 21 days. And of course, we don't start on the first because of the holidays.
Right.
And I want everybody's full participation. And I always like to start on a Sunday, because I like to kickstart it myself. So this year it will be January 7th through the 27th. I'm inviting every single person who's listening to my voice right now. You have a week to think about what kind of fasting you'll do. Commit it and stick with it. Whatever you decide your own type. There's all kinds of different types of fasting. Pick what you're going to do, set aside these times, and then just ramp up your spiritual life by doing two things. By whatever your prayer life, Bible reading life, and worship life is, try to increase that. And then whatever secular that is in your life, try to reduce it. Whenever you add a higher than normal level of spiritual and you lower the secular, powerful things happen. And that's what the 21 days looks like for us. We'll be in it praying and fasting, seeking God for a powerful 2024.
Yeah, we invite you to be a part of it. And if you have any questions about any of the resources that we offer, Pastor Chris's Pray First book, any of that, be sure and send us an email at info@growleader.com, and we'll help you out any way we can.
Yeah, and all the resources are on the homepage of Church of the Highlands. You can go learn about fasting. I have messages archived there under the 21 Days of Prayer tab there. You can get prayer guides. You can download these, print these at your church. We've just updated our Pray First prayer guide. I'm excited about that. You can even get sermon material at GrowLeader. We can get you messages if you'd like to preach. There's actually a church up in Pittsburgh, Matt, that's actually doing 3 weeks of Pray First. They're gonna take people through how to pray. So all those sermons are available. You can get the books in bulk order. You can charge more than you buy them for and make the money. It didn't bother me. I just want this message into the hands of the people of our country so we can pray and seek God.
It really shapes the rest of our year here at
Absolutely.
Highlands. It's a big deal in our people. Honestly, we think it tills the ground for the harvest later on in the year because of how God's moving in people's lives. So I want to get into your content, the bullet points that you sent me that I'm so excited to dig into. But I want to ask you about, we have some listener questions. People send us in some
Yeah,
questions.
we're starting our podcast off with a question or two, and I like that.
So I love this one. And so the question was, what advice, PC, would you have for how leaders can continue to grow and develop? They actually asked about senior leaders growing and developing, but I think it's anytime in leadership you go to another level. If you're a parent, you're the senior leader in that house. No one's developing you in that house on a day-to-day basis. How are you still growing and developing? What advice would you give?
Well, obviously, they're asking that question because they think they get to a certain place and there's no one else to talk to.
Right.
So they're the senior leader. As John Maxwell says, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So that's the answer to the question. You have to get yourself in other rooms. And I say it 2 words that start with the letter M, and that is models and mentors. So in other words, find somebody who is better than you in any area. So there is somebody who's better than me with money. There's somebody who's better than me, obviously, with my physical life. There's somebody who's better than me with my marriage, perhaps. Right. There's somebody better than me with how they read. There are people that are better than me in writing books. So in literally every area of my life, there is somebody who's better than me. Find them. And even if you can't talk to them personally, they can be a model from afar, or they can be a mentor up close. And so at the very least, have a model. Go learn how they do it. I'm actually, I've already set up for this month to spend time with someone who's very good at writing. I think I'm decent. I've done better than most as far as book sales goes. I don't know if that really means the book is that great or not, but I've sold a lot of books, right? But I want to get better. So I've actually made an appointment. I'm having it in about 3 days. I'm meeting with someone who's going to coach me and get me better in my writing skills. And just, I'm okay, but I want to be better. So that's what you do. How do you have a growth plan? Identify an area, find a person, which means you can have more than one mentor. You can have 20 for the 20 different areas of your life.
So great. I think that, we would all do that in the gym. So if you don't know what to do in a workout, you would go get a personal trainer and they would show you what to do. And my wife and I, we do that in parenting. We've got a couple we look at and we're like, we want our kids to look like your kids later on. How do we do that?
Perfect.
Great advice. We had another question. We're not going to get into it today, but I want to kind of tease the next couple of months. How do you develop and file your message content? So I want to get to that coming up.
My filing system.
Your filing system.
I might have to show that. I don't know if I can actually just say it. When I teach this at the college and actually bring my computer and I put it on the screen and I show how I filed and where I put my messages and where I put things so I can, because the secret to filing, here's the short answer, the secret to filing is just making sure you can find it one day. If you file it in a place you don't know where it is, then it's not a good system.
You call it the pantry.
Yep.
And I'm not sure I would know where the tomato paste is in my pantry. So I want to, we're going to dig into that. I want to know about that later on.
That sounds
Let's
fun.
get into the content for today.
Yeah, I want to talk about something that I just finished going through, and that is my goal setting day. And for me, it takes about 2 days. And I have this season between Christmas and New Year's that I always set aside 2 of those days to reflect. I actually go back through my camera roll, Matt, from January to December, and I just think and look back. And I have actually used and I know this is old school and people don't do this anymore, but actually plan my year with a paper calendar. So I have one of those, daily minders, kind of a month. It's actually a monthly minder, and I can look back over months, and it's all scribbly. When it's for sure going to happen, I put it in my iPhone or my iPad. Right? It's digital at some point, but I love to plan and think on paper. And so I go back through my year, and when I see certain seasons, I thought, yeah, I put too much into that season, or man, I missed a moment in that season. And it's just easy for me to look back through pictures and through my calendar and to see my year and I evaluate. But then I always have a full half day for sure, where I'm going to go through, and I use the full focus planner. I've talked about that quite a bit. I go through this planner and I goal set, and they actually make room in this planner for 10 to 12 annual goals. So just targets you're going to hit. And I just had that day, and I thought I'd share a little bit of the things that I do that I think are unique, and maybe some of you aren't doing these, and maybe you have time in the next few days before the year really kicks in to have at least a few hours to think through your 2024.
Well, and listening to last month's episode, we talked about, you talked about looking through your camera roll, and I've got to confess, I'd never done that before. And so my wife and I, we sat down and did it over the past week and a half, and the amount of gratitude, just if nothing else, the amount of gratitude, when you look back over your past year and like, life's really good. Like we have incredible friends and watching our kids grow up. But I think you almost have to have that evaluation point of the previous year before you go in and set goals for the new year.
I think so too.
Of knowing, man, I want more of this in my life. Or we did too much of this.
Yeah, it's a discipline we do in every meeting here at Highlands. You know this. Before we look ahead, we always look back.
Right.
We just finished our Christmas services. We did over 130 services. And they were great, best ever, but we found things we want to do better. So we made those notes now so that when we start planning the Christmas service in the fall, these notes are going to be waiting on us. Even my own message, I thought, man, I wish I would have done this, or this would have made it a little bit better. So yeah, we call it the debriefing things before you go ahead. But I want to talk about goal setting, and I want to give you a few kind of 30,000-foot view thoughts, and then I want to get into the weeds of it just a little bit. But the first is, and this is going to sound so cliche, but it's not. It's actually incredibly important, and that is spend some time in prayer and get the heart of God. So I fully believe that God speaks to us, and that as sheep, he directs us. John chapter 10, his sheep know his voice, and they follow him. Galatians chapter 5, keep in step with the Spirit. So if the Spirit's moving, and my job is to keep in step with the Spirit, then I have to be tuned into that Spirit. So I like to spend time in repentance, purification, just asking God to cleanse every part of my life. I always spend time in worship. I like to pray in the Spirit. I believe that I'm going to connect with the Holy Spirit. I'm going to ask God, I don't want ambitious goals.
Right.
I don't want just, throwing darts at something that just seems a little higher than last year. No. Well, I want the mind of God in this situation. And so I really try to pray and ask God over several areas of my life, Lord, what is your will for my family? What is your will for my marriage? And I believe the Holy Spirit speaks to us, convicts us, directs us, guides us. What is your will for my finances? What is your will for GrowLeader? What is your will for Highlands College and Church of the Highlands? And I try to listen. I like instrumental music when I'm doing this, so I'm not thinking words. I'm trying to hear the voice of God in this. But I want to say that right off the bat, pray and get the heart of God.
You said before, I think on one of the podcast episodes, I think I described you as being driven, and you kind of stopped me and said, that is not the goal. You don't want to be driven, you want to be led.
Absolutely.
And how much, it's hard to explain to people how much you really are relying on God in every single situation of what we do. I think people look at what's happening at Highlands or even Highlands College, and they think that there's this numerical goal on everything. You're very much about, hey, let's stay healthy so we can have things as God opens them up for us in the future. This is not just for this time of year, though. You're doing this year-round. How important is that? And we know the answer, but from your heart, for the senior leader of any organization or any family, to be led by the Holy Spirit in all that they're doing?
Yeah, I actually never set, in 23 years, I've ever set a numeric goal.
Wow.
So I've never said I want this many more people or this more money or this many more groups. I've always had health goals. What can I do to get the church healthier? And honestly, it's going to surprise people, from the college to the campuses. You would be surprised that more than 85% of it were not ever planned. I was way more an opportunist than I was a strategist. So I put myself and the organization in the healthiest place I can find so that when the opportunities come, I can say yes. There are so many campuses that came to us, not us to them. This building we're sitting in, I told them no the first time they came to me. Like, I don't need this building, right? So I'm way more of an opportunist than I am a strategist. But what prayer and planning and thinking does is it gets me in a healthier place.
So how did the goals that you set, because they're not numerical goals, and I don't want anybody leaving this saying we need to set numerical goals for everything. Talk about just the overall philosophy of how you're setting goals when they're not numerical, they're more health goals.
Yeah, so I always begin with the end in mind, as the saying goes, and that is, I don't even think just 2024. I think, where do I want to be in 2030? That's 6 years from now. where do I see myself? Am I still preaching? What am I doing with GrowLeader? What would my family? I imagine, what's my family going to look like when they're all 6 years older? And what is my marriage going to look like? I just go through every aspect of life, and I try to not really even plan it, but just think it. Where would I want to be 6 years from now? What kind of relationship would I want with my kids? What do I see GrowLeader doing? And just imagine and pray through the long-term goals. And then I get into the annual goals, and we'll do those last. But then you even reduce it down. This is the real secret, Matt, and that is annual goals have to be broken down, in my opinion, in every 6-week goals. And then those every 6 weeks need to be down to the day. So now you're breaking it down. Once I have this 6-year plan, at least in the area of dreaming and hopes and wishes
right.
for my family and this organization and the things that I lead, and I get that big 5-6 year dream, and now I'm getting ready to plan these annual goals. Man, you've got to break it down to, okay, what are the most important things over the next 6 weeks? And this is the failure of most people ever accomplishing their annual goals, is they waited to the end of the year to ask themselves if they've ever accomplished them. But if you're giving yourself an every 6-week checkup, for instance, if I want to lose 20 pounds over an entire year, I'm not really that motivated to start now as much. But if I have to have 2 or 3 of those off in the next 3 weeks, okay. And then you ask yourself, then what do you have to do today for that to happen? That's what I'm talking about. If every part of your life, finances, relationships, organization, health, all these things were put through those grids, now you're getting into more concrete approaches to goal setting.
Which is probably why New Year's resolutions don't work. They're not bite-sized enough. They're not
right.
action-oriented enough. But if you just said, in fact, when I first came on staff, one of the ways you led our staff meetings was, hey guys, I want to know your 6 goals in the next 6 weeks.
Yeah, I did that for years. 6 goals in 6 weeks.
And I got to determine them.
Right.
And you just say, hey, you know what? There's a better goal than that. You would kind of adjust that, but I had the freedom to decide what were the 6 goals in the next 6 weeks. And that was the point of accountability in 6 weeks. Hey, how'd you do on these? Like, where are these now?
And when I lead our team meetings, the lead team meeting, when I'm just thinking about the church alone, so what 6 things have to happen in the next 6 weeks? If you ask that question every 6 weeks, about every area of your life. If you looked across the table at your spouse and said, what 6 things do we want to accomplish in our family over the next 6 weeks? Even if you only get 1 or 2 of them done,
right.
you're quantum leaps ahead of everybody else. So it's very, very important. So anyway, once you kind of get these pictures in your head of this 6-year plan and then this annual goal that we're getting ready to write down, and then we can reduce it down to these 6 goals every 6 weeks, which leads for me to that daily page that I fill out in my planner. Here are the 3 tasks I want to get done today. Now you're talking about real goals, not just pie in the sky, dreamy. Oh, I'm gonna lose 100 pounds. I'm gonna, I have $1 million in savings. Right. You're not just pie in the sky. No. You're breaking it down to something that's actually doable. And then I think it's important to kind of vet those and share those with people that you're close to, your spouse. I have a couple of buddies that I'm gonna say, hey man, let me tell you some things I'm dreaming about. And it's different people for different areas. So like I'm gonna talk to Lee about some of the things I'm dreaming about with GrowLeader. I'm gonna talk to Mark Pettis about things I'm dreaming about with Highlands College. I'm gonna talk to Dino and Lane and you guys, the campus pastors, about some of the dreams I have for the church, and start kind of like, just letting those out of your spirit and seeing how people respond to those. It helps you in this planning so much.
Well, is that where is a goal not enough, or is it too ambitious? Is that where you kind of get that feedback from?
Yeah, so I want to have faith. I want to believe God for things that, are in the impossible realm.
Right.
But I also want to be realistic at the same time. But I always just kind of flesh these out. Little known fact, Matt, I never do my goals in ink. I always do them in pencil.
Wow.
And over the 21 days of prayer, so I just wrote mine out this past week, okay? We're going to enter into this 21 days, but I may go back and erase one, make it bigger.
That's great.
I may erase it, make it smaller. I may erase it completely and not want to do it at all. I might add one that wasn't even on the list. So now it's a month-long praying it through, thinking it through, talking it through with others, that I think really helps. And by the way, when you're setting these annual goals, I do about 8 of them. They are in one of two areas. They're either an achievement goal, which is like I want to earn this much more money, or I want to put this much more money in savings. So that's actually that's like a finish line. You can cross it and you did it. They call that an achievement goal. But the second is a habit goal. I want to read 3 books a month. Well, I hope I never change that, or whatever. Or I want to work out 3 days a week. So there are achievement goals too that really don't have a finish line. They are something that you put into your habit. And then the areas, I felt led just to give people the areas that I'm actually currently planning in.
Right.
And you want to know about any of them, you know me, I don't mind being a bit transparent, and I'll share as personally. But these are actually the areas that I set a goal in. I set my first one in the area of my family, which includes my marriage. But I had goals this year I wrote down about my grandkids, because my grandkids are growing up and they're not babies anymore. And I want to start, this is one of my goals, that I'm going to set a goal to spend one-on-one time with them, taking them, on just a day trip kind of a thing, or a go out to eat with them, of course, at a McDonald's or something like that, something that they would actually enjoy or whatever.
That affects planning, because you have how many grandkids?
Yeah, so we have 8, and so
that's 8 days right there.
And there's at least 2 or 3 of the older ones that are ready for just some get along with Papa time.
Yeah.
Okay, it even came down though to what day would that work out best, which came down to, for me, that's probably going to be a Saturdays, which is best for them. So I started even planning, making some decisions about what I'm going to say no to on Saturdays too, Matt. See how they play into that. Highlands College, is another area that I set some new goals, and these were usually in the area of enrollment or in fundraising, and something that I really enjoy. Church of the Highlands is another area that I wrote out a fresh goal this year. Again, they're not numeric, it's more health related. What we measure, and we're going to be talking about this more on the podcast and at the GrowLeader conference this year, because we're not changing the growth track, but I have every intention in my heart in making the growth track so much better this year. I just have it in my heart that probably one of the best things that we could do for our church is just make the growth track. It's great. I want to make it better. I have in my heart that it could get even better. And we're going to start fleshing that out with you guys this month during the fast. And then we're going to start unveiling it to the people in our church.
Yeah, let me reiterate.
To the other churches.
We're not completely changing the growth track. So somebody's got to email us and say, hey, we'll tell you. And we want to try and make sure it works before we actually
No, it'll look exactly the same, but I want to make it better. And I'm talking about the evenings themselves, the actual steps and what takes place. I just think there are some, let me say this word, enhancements. That can actually make it better. But of course, I had goals this year for GrowLeader, goals in my personal finances, and I think everybody should think about 3 things in their finances, and that is earning, saving, and giving. And I'll just say this. I don't know if I should or not, but I think it'll help somebody. But about 12, 15 years ago, Tammy and I started a goal that we would add a percentage of our giving. Wow. So we were already tithing, that we would add a percentage to our giving every year, unless something happened, financially where we couldn't. And I think for 8 of those 12 years, we've been able to do that. That's awesome. And it became a goal. But it started off, Matt, with 1%, which is doable for us. It's probably doable for most people that are listening to me. And now it's grown because we wanted to be generous. It's things like that if you'll set some goals. I actually set social goals, meaning I plan and put in my calendar people I want to spend time with in 2024, with family, Tammy. So I've already planned all of my travel. I've blocked off weeks that I know I want to spend time with my kids and their spouses and my grandkids. I blocked off time I want to spend with some pastor friends. Don't know what we're going to do yet, but the weeks are blocked off. So if somebody asks me right now, hey, are you busy this particular week? I'd say, yeah, I am.
Right.
And I don't have the trip planned, but I have the week blocked off. Right. And that's how you I call it taking charge of your schedule, which is where we're going to end this. I set new goals for myself in the area of creativity. And this is one that I would challenge every single person that's listening to me right now. What are your creative goals? What are you going to write? What are you going to create? What are you going to think through? I believe personally, people say, well, I'm not a creative person. No, I believe everybody is, because God is, and God's spirit inside of us. Chapter 1 of Genesis, In the beginning, God created. That's who God is, which means that's who I am. I think he gives us ideas. So I'm actually starting, let me say it this way, starting a new book this year I'm excited about. And my last area is physically, things I'm going to do to take care of myself, try to, I always start off the new year with some physical goals, health goals. Of course, the fast helps me get a little jump start on that as well. So, yeah, these are just some of the categories that I set goals in, and I just wanted to say those to the listeners so that they could do the same.
So I want to know about some of the practical tools that you use. So you mentioned an in-glance calendar, just kind of looking at glancing at the week in pencil. The full focus planner, though, has really helped you and kind of trained you systematically in how to do this. What's been the biggest takeaway from that tool? Because that's what it is. It's a tool to help you in this process.
Yeah, and they would be disappointed to hear this. I don't use it as a planner, carrying it around all day. One of their things is carry it around all day. I don't. It sits where my Bible sits and my journal sits, and I touch it one time a day.
That's great.
I just spent 2 days with it, filling out my annual goals. But then for me, it's a part of my morning time alone, and then I will write out those 3 tasks based on these annual goals. So I'll go read these annual goals at least every 2 weeks. I'm going to go back and just read through my annual goals. Oh, yeah, man, I better get started on that, right? And I'm going to set some daily tasks because everything really comes down to making every day a masterpiece. Yeah. And so that's how I use it. Now, it does so much more than that. It can be your calendar, and it can, actually use this at-a-glance monthly calendar to do my planning for travel and trips and all that kind of stuff. So that's probably been the biggest takeaway, though, for me is that daily page where I can write out those 3 tasks.
And we'll link that tool to you in the show notes. Make sure you have it. So I want to ask you, I don't know if you've ever given everybody your ideal week, what your ideal week looks like. I think that'd be really, really helpful if you'd share that with us.
Well, that's the final step, honestly. And by the way, when you write out these goals, make sure you write one sentence of why it's important. So, because there's power in the why. Don't miss this. Okay, so it can't be I want to lose 20 pounds or I need, I want, $50,000 more in my savings account. No, the question is, why do you want?
That's great.
What are you going to do with that $50,000? What is that? So you can give it away? Is that so you can, have rainy day fun? Is that so you can, bless your kids? Like the why is the motivation behind it. Listen to me. And without the why, you have no fuel for the goal.
That's great.
So every goal needs to state the fact and then right underneath it and say why this is important to me. And then finally, it comes down to the daily way you live your life. And for me is if you don't have a good understanding of what your ideal week looks like, then most of this will never happen. So, and what I mean by an ideal week, I mean you rarely ever have a week that looks exactly like this. But if you could have it your way, and there were no interruptions, and there was nothing out of the ordinary, this would be the perfect week. And that's what I do. I have an ideal week, and I redid it again. It doesn't need much adjustment for me because I like the way I was doing it, right? But I have a certain time I get up. I have a morning routine. I spend time with God. I have a certain time that I'm in the office, not earlier, not later. I have a certain meetings on certain days. I actually only spend 2 days a week actually in the physical office at the church building. I office at home 2 days a week. I have dedicated date nights, dedicated family nights. I know what I do on Saturdays. I know what my Sundays look like. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I know when I'm going to evaluate my week on Sunday night, at what time. And when you start putting that ideal week, and it may get adjusted, and it usually does because life just does that. And I do not live legalistically. But man, when you have that perfect in your mind, man, I'm telling you, it brings order. And according to psychiatrists and psychologists, order calms the brain.
That's great.
Gives you security and strength. And so I can't recommend this enough. Psalm 90, verse 12, I'll leave a verse. We'll read at least one verse in this talk today. And I like it out of the Living Bible. It says, teach us to number our days. I like this. And recognize how few they are and help us to spend them as we should. You do that, you get your year, 6 year, 1 year, week,
that's great.
Day, and you get all this ordered in your head, written down. Don't just think it, write it down. I promise you a more productive 2024.
I'm excited. I've got work to do. I want to go and start planning all this stuff. Thank you so much for
I loved it.
for always bringing this to us. Hey, and I don't always ask you to do this, but it's the first day of the year. I know somebody's going to listen to this in September. They're going to need this too. Would you mind just praying for everybody as we start our year?
Yeah, it's great.
For God to move in our lives.
It's a great idea. And Father, I do pray for every listener right now, Lord, and we dedicate our year to you. And God, just like our giving and our day, God, we're going to give our year first to you. God, we set aside our own agenda, our own plans. And God, we set aside these days to seek your face, turn from our wicked ways. God, we want to hear from heaven in 2024. Lord, I do believe this is going to be a year of miracles where we're going to see your hand move in difficult situations. So, God, I'm praying blessing over our churches, over our families, our marriages, our children, our emotions, our health, our minds, every part of who we are, Lord. We are the temple of the Holy Spirit, set apart for you. And God, we declare that 2024 is going to be a year we serve you like we have never served you before. And God, we promise for everything that happens in this year, we will give you all the glory. In Jesus' mighty name, amen.
Thanks, PC. So grateful for you. Hey, everybody, have the best start to the year ever. We're so grateful for you. Love having you along on the journey. Hey, share this with somebody that you know would be helped by hearing this. Come see us at GrowLeader.com for all things GrowLeader. We'll help you there. We'll see you next time on the GrowLeader podcast. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for listening to this episode. And we also want to say a big thank you to all of our partners that help make the GrowLeader podcast happen each and every month. The first is Compassion International. For over 70 years, they have served the most vulnerable children in the world in Jesus' name. Through the power of the local church, they've impacted over 2.3 million children, and they're not stopping anytime soon. Learn more about how you can be a part of what they're doing at compassion.com/growleader. The next is our newest partner, Studio C. Studio C can help you know your people and grow your church. They combine strategy, technology, and communications to maximize church member engagement. You can bridge the engagement gap and transform your church's impact with Studio C. Learn more about them at their website. It's thestudioc.org/growleader. And finally, a big thank you to the Wesleyan Investment Foundation. For over 80 years, the Wesleyan Investment Foundation has helped churches with their borrowing and their investing needs. Whether you're dreaming of a new opportunity or seeking wise counsel about resource management, WIF can assist you. You can learn more about them at wifonline.com/growleader.